Car order. It's always been car order.
I strongly disagree.
That's the way it is. Ripped him out through the window in a nice way.
Just so I could go down and drink a carton while everyone punches on.
Just pisses me to tears. That's the worst thing you can do.
You shut up, you hack. Talking about boat ramps, this is what I wanted to get through from the start. What he said.
Oh, you just been an idiot.
And welcome to Chumming Up, the fishing, spearfishing and ocean adventure podcast that is like an Australian MP's desk because it's just mainly for seamen. You been following that, Leewald?
I haven't really been following that. I'm not too much in. I know a tiny bit, but nah, doesn't interest me.
Staffers just jerking off on MP's desks.
Is that what it's about,
yeah.
is it?
Yeah, like filming it, sending it to their mates. They're dumb fucks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I am Squirrely, and the other person amazed with that is my co-host Leewald Mitchell. How you going, big horse?
Yeah, going good.
Good. You happy about this fucking episode? I reckon it's going to be good.
Yeah, this one will be good, yeah.
Yeah, because we've got an all-rounder that I better introduce properly and say his name wrongly. This guy catches big billfish. He catches them all. He also spearfishes all around the world, I guess. Yeah. And from what I've heard, when it comes to his breath hold, he holds his breath longer than Mark Hutchings trying to pleasure himself. So welcome to the podcast, Nate Brejnak.
Thank you, mate. Good to be here. Yeah.
How'd I say your name? How much did I fuck it up?
No, you got it. You nailed it.
I got it. Fucking
straight away, mate.
Hip hip hooray.
Yeah.
So how's your fishing been going lately? You're just been on your swing off, so
yeah, just at the end of my swing off now. On I work offshore on the vessels out there, but so yeah, my 3 weeks is up, so back out. But no, it was good. I actually got good weather this time, so I was stoked. Last time round, I had shitty weather the whole time, but this time, yeah, we nailed it. We sort of got good weather. Got out on the boat heaps, went out and burned a heap of fuel, long hours, sort of. Managed to notch a few more blues up for the season. Sort of coming to the end of the season now, so I was just stoked to get out there and get amongst it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you would have been looking at the dates, thinking it could be a bit hit or miss at this stage, or
100%. Yeah. Normally, especially not so much the weather. It's like the end of the season for our blues. The fish are starting to get pretty thin. The water's heating up. So yeah, to actually get the good weather to line up with a few fish around as well, it was I was pretty happy.
Yep. Any big numbers or big fish on this lot?
No big numbers. It was all small number days. I kind of went out. GameX was pretty much running at the same time as well, so I was trying to stay away from all the other boats. So went and sort of explored some new areas, not the normal areas I fish.
Yep.
But yeah, sort of just almost like a normal season again after, this season we had some crazy numbers. There were so many fish around. We really got spoiled. And so to say that, we went back to getting only like 4 or 5 bites a day. So, that's anywhere else it's probably good fishing.
Yeah.
But here it's like,
be quiet.
I only got the one blue and got a couple of blacks and, had a couple of mystery bites. But yeah, it was
And how much of those trips would you have been fishing by yourself? I know you do a fair bit.
Half of them. Half of the trips, yeah. I was solo, yeah.
That's just out of keenness, you're very strict with who you let on your boat?
Oh, no, I am. I mean, if you're going to be stuck on a boat for 12 hours with someone, you kind of want to be in, someone's company that you prefer, you like to be. But I'm also a pretty, a solitary person. Pretty choosy with who I like to fish with.
Yeah.
And just a lot of the time also it's easier just to go on my own because it's like a last minute call or whatever, and I try and get people keen, but most of the time, it's just easier to roll solo.
Yeah. And you don't fish the comps like GameX you did?
Nah, like I was saying, I'm just not really into the crowds and all the people and the hoo-ha, like.
Yeah, fucking people.
It's all different, it's good, but I'm sort of, if I'm out there and I'm fishing, I got 2 or 3 other boats with me, I'm sort of cranky. I'm like, what the hell are these guys doing out around me? Like, what are they doing in my line and who are these people? It's like, I'll be like, I'm pulling my gear up and finding my own water.
So in saying that, obviously, Yellowfin Tuna for a while locally in Western Australia here drove you pretty hard. You really were interested in catching and spearing and chasing those, and now Blue Marlin's come into that equation as well. Obviously the tournament scene's not your thing. What's driving you there? You just want to catch a lot, or you want to catch a real big one, or something different?
I don't know. Like up with the yellowfin, like I was obsessed with yellowfin for a long time there. That was really driving me. It was just all I wanted was tuna. That was me. Like I chase those things around the world. Like I've done trips, remote places through Mexico and a few times and whatnot, looking for them, and then to have them on our own doorstep right here, that was the sort of thing. But then I managed to get them. I knocked them. We speared a few good ones, and then I caught a bunch as well. And then that's when my interest sort of went on to Blue Marlin. Like at the start, I was kind of really irritated because I was trying to catch a tuna, and these dirty big Blue Marlin kept piling onto my gear, and I'd be like,
fucking bycatch.
Yeah, I'd be like, this is shit house. Like, I'm stuck under 200 kilos of marlin, and I can see tuna busting up out there, and I'm only running 200-pound leaders, so I can't really get up on them. But then, I guess they chipped away at me, and they found a little place in my heart, the old Blue Marlin, and now I'm obsessed with Blue Marlin because I guess the unpredictable nature of them as well. Like, you think you've got them dialed, you have a really good run, and you think you're killing it, and then you just go from hero to zero really on them, and it all falls apart. And there's something about it. It's a really addictive type of fishing, I think.
Yeah, well, I think the same for me. You're always chasing a good day. Like you're saying, 5 bite days. You have a 10 bite day with big fish or yellowfin or grand slams, and then you remember that day, and then the next 10 days put in are nothing like that day, but you're trying to chase it.
I think that's how alcoholics and heroin addicts explain their addiction. They're like, you're just chasing that one good time you had, even though you have so many bad ones. It's so funny.
Except it's more expensive.
It's a lot more expensive. So I say the crack marlin. It's like we'll have a day, we'll catch 4 blues or whatever, and we put the gear straight back in, and we're just all buzzing, and then we're like, we just want one more. I just want to hear that real scream. One more. I just want to hear an 80 going. Just one more time, and you're always on. That's the thing with the Blue Marlin fishing. I guess you're always on edge. Like you're sitting there watching the spread, staring there, and a lot of people are like, oh, this is boring, or but it's like I'm in anticipation. I'm on the edge of my seat, just knowing that at any moment you can literally go from being asleep to you just don't know. You could have a 400-500 kilo sea creature pile on at any second, like another grander or whatever. You don't know. You could have a big yellowfin pile on. It's just that anticipation, and I guess unless you've done it a lot and you know what can happen, if you don't know that, then I guess it comes across as being boring. But once you've seen what can happen, then you're not bored because at any moment like something amazing could happen. Yeah, I guess that's what drives most marlin fishermen and whatnot to keep on doing and spend the time and stay out there.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions, just people from around the world and that on the difference, because we get the big blues here, like the difference between the blues and the black marlin. Do you feel that as much? Like you're really chasing the blues for a reason? And
100%. That's the Blue Marlin give you that adrenaline rush. Like a black marlin is a completely different fight. Like you can generally know whatever marlin you've hooked by the way the reel goes. Like a Blue Marlin hits, and it's like that reel screams, and you see this fish just churning the ocean up all around you, like it's jaw dropping. Like the amount of power these fish have, like it actually is an adrenaline rush. It gets your heart pumping. Whereas a black marlin, and that would generally it'll do its little run, and then they sulk down deep a bit. You can clear, you'll get back on them, and then once you get on them, I guess they'll start jumping and doing all that. But you don't get that same buzz as what you do off a a Blue Marlin generally,
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion.
Would you say the same, Leewald?
Yeah, definitely.
I've had that feeling from.
A blue marlin turn the surface to white water, where a black marlin is very cool, but it'll just greyhound along. And I think a lot of it probably is our location as well. The blue marlin tend to be larger.
Yep.
Where I think a lot of it, for me personally, is just the size of the fish. If we're catching a 500-pound black marlin for the day, I love it as well.
Yeah, it's pretty
Where
cool.
I suppose if you lived in Cairns, then black marlin would probably be what you live and breathe, because they got big ones of them there. But our blue marlin are just larger, but they definitely got a lot more poke. They're like a V8, where a black marlin's like a solid 6-cylinder.
Yeah. He's reliable. Yeah. So when it comes to your tuna that you've speared and caught out of here, what sort of sizes are we looking for both of those?
For speared, that's how I guess it started off here for us. I came to Exmouth, and at that stage I was just a spear fishing fanatic. Like, I lived and breathed spear fishing. Like, I would not even consider line fishing. I didn't even own a rod.
Yeah.
We came here and we worked, and I mean, it's all fair now. It's gone, but we used to have Spearo, the FPSO that was located in 900 metres of water, sort of 40 mile offshore here.
Yep.
And I mean, that was just like a giant fad. It literally was just a heaven for tuna and game fishing and whatever. And it was just the perfect spot to be able to try and dive and spear a big yellowfin, which in Australia hadn't really been done before. And so, yeah, we went out there and we put the time in. We put a lot of time in, like so many days out there, just, going up current, dropping in, just chumming up, drifting, trying to make it happen, just getting piled on by 20, 30 silky whalers.
Yeah, they don't mind
The sharks were so irritating out there. Like, it was a hassle, but then we sort of nutted it out, and it's all about timing and just time on the water. Like, you could go out there and you would not see a fish for 9 hours straight, and then all of a sudden, just boom, there's fish. They just arrive. Like, same thing, they rock up. But we got a few small fish in like sort of the 20 to 30 kilo range. We saw some bigger fish. And then we had one really good day, me and one of my good friends from Perth, Ash. Same thing, we'd been out there all day. We'd been chumming, we'd been chasing him around like we normally do, and we hadn't gotten lucky at all. My mate Ash, he'd gone in the boat, like it was only two of us, so we'd take it in turns, one in the water, one in the boat.
Yep.
He'd already pulled his wetty off, he'd cracked a tin, he was like, no, it's all over, it's not going to happen once again. Anyway, and then it was just like literally out of nowhere, the ocean just erupted all around us, just yellowfin everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, we raced up there, just like chucked a big bucket of chum in straight away. I was just like frantic really, as you are when you're out there. I'm just like, where's the yellowfin? Where's the tuna? Where's the birds? Like, where are they? Throw more belly, throw less belly. Like, just hectic. And then it all lined up, and I looked down and just saw this tuna just like coming through the chum perfectly. Just it's like what your dreams are made of. Like, drop down, same thing. And then, there it was, just lined up a piece of chum, and this thing just came through and bang, just smoked it. Like, perfect. That was a 40 kilo yellowfin.
Yeah.
And then like, I was losing my mind. It was like the happiest moment of my life. So it's literally like any good Spearo, anyone that's chased something like that will understand it. And then I got in the boat, and my mate was like trying to rip his wetty on and doing that. And the tuna was still there, and we're going up, and I've chum in. He's jumped in straight away. He's had like 6 fish up. Same thing. He had a shot and he missed.
Oh, no.
And it was just like, he was losing it. He's like, I missed it. It's like, no, they're still there. They're still there. So, it's a 5 rubber cannon.
Yeah.
Reloading this thing isn't like an easy deal, like he's trying to like get the shaft back in, and you're running like triple rapid cables, so it takes ages, and there's like 1 rubber, 2 rubber, 3 rubbers, little rest, and so where are those? Oh, they're still here. It's like 4 rubbers, 5 rubbers, and then we kept going, and then fair enough, like another lot have come straight in, and he's dropped down and just boom, just perfectly played another one, like 40 kilo one.
Oh, nice.
Pigeon pair. So he was pulling that in. The sun was setting, like, it was double 40 mile offshore, and we were just ecstatic. It was like the best day ever.
Yeah. How good's that feeling?
Oh, mate, it was such a successful feeling. Like, at that stage, you know, we'd been chasing him for probably 2 to 3 years out there. Like,
Yeah.
I spent so many days out there. Like, you would not, like, I would have spent weeks, longer months out there, just every day drifting for most of the time, no reason. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we saw some amazing stuff, like a lot of big marlin and that coming through our chum. Like, we had like big blue marlin eating our chum at times, and makos, stripes.
That's
like,
sick.
Big schools, a big hammerhead. It was pretty lucky to have been able to see that fishery while it was there.
Yep.
But then, it was the summer just after that. We were out there one day. There's a lot of big yellowfin around, and one of my good mates from here, Benny Dixon, he managed to put the spear in a real big one, like proper, like, you know, like 80, 90 kilo barrel, like
Yeah,
big fish.
rightio.
But he sort of like, we were out there, it was a bit slow and rah, and I was like, we were sort of at the end of our drift anyway, and had a big bucket of red emperor frames and that we'd speared a few days before. I was like, I've got to get rid of these anyway. So I was like, I looked at them and I was like, stuff them. And I just chucked these big buckets of frames in. And he's like, what do you do that for? The sharks are all over us now. And he's like having a full crack at me and that. And he's like, and then he puts his head in and he's just like, tuna. Just started screaming. And like with all this commotion, with all these sharks like eating the chum, these frames, just out of nowhere, like these 4 or 5 big like tuna have rocked up and just joined the action, and like they were in there and they were just savage. They were eating paper towel, they were eating everything. And anyway, he's just like dropped down, and he had the GoPro footage of it. It was pretty wild, like, you know.
Yeah, I seen a screen grab of
as
it.
he went down and the tuna were there, and like the GoPro fell off his head as he was lining up, and as it's fallen off his head, it showed this tuna above him eating this paper towel, and it was like big sickles, like amazing.
Really?
Then it just captures him shoot this tuna. And then the last thing you see is this tuna like just diving with. He sort of shot it in the last half of the fish, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it goes, and that goes. I was in the boat and I was watching him dive, and then I just see the floats just skipping across the water, and then they're gone, disappeared. Like, you know, 3 atmosphere float and a fight float, everything, 30-meter bungee, stretch out, gone. And I was like looking. Like, I'd seen some big tuna get shot, and never that. And I was like, where are the floats? And he's like, they're gone. He's like, I just saw him go down, like out of sight, like 30, 40 meter viz. Like disappeared.
Wow.
And I was just like, what did you shoot? And he was like, I shot a big one, I think.
It's a sub.
It was a proper one. And then, he came back to the boat and we sat there, and then like probably 2 minutes later, the floats all popped up and they came up. It's like, there I could just see, you know, like when the floats pop up and it just wasn't bobbing. It wasn't sort of vertical.
Yeah.
It was just dead flat. I was like, straight away, I was like, you know, like, shit, we've lost it. It's gone.
Yeah.
And we got there and the bungee had snapped. So the actual bungee had snapped, and then, the spear had pulled as well, I think. And
Yeah.
so it was just an unknown. It was like, did
Fuck.
it pull or did it get sharked? Or I'd say it probably just pulled, unfortunately. But
Yeah, with that much
that was
pressure.
like the first case. Like that was a proper, at that stage, that was like probably like the biggest yellowfin speared in Australia. Like,
Yeah.
It would have been the record easily. So that drove us for a bit, and then I jumped in and I was all fired up, and just after that, like I was so excited, and these silkies came in on the chum, and I was like, and I've just gone to belt this one with my gun, and I've sort of belted it too hard, and the slip tip toggled in it. Like 5 rubber cannon, like the slip tips toggled in it, and I was like, oh shit, and I've tried to rip it out, and it's literally just gone nuts and just ripped my cannon out my hand.
Oh, no.
Bungee's gone down, like we're trying to fight this shark, like holding on the bungee, it was coming around, and you know, the gun hadn't fired or anything yet, and it pulled the spear out, it was all bent, and I was saying to Benny, I was like, mate, you're going to have to shoot this shark. Like, you're going to have to shoot it. And he was like, I'm not shooting it. And I was like, we got no choice. And we got this silky up, and then he's put a shot in it with just my rifle Euro, and then this thing just went nuts and just turned around, started biting everything, like bit the gun, like snapped all the rubbers, and you know, we had to like leg it for the boat. This thing was chomping everything. Like, we legged it for the boat, piled in, and then had to pull it up. And by the time we dealt with this shark and, you know, dispatched it, the tuna had already gone back down, and sort of that was it for the day. And then that was a frustrating way to end it.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately that was the last summer of the Spearo. It left. They decommissioned it.
Yeah.
Just that year.
But in saying that, in the last 12 or 16 months, you've had 2 days where you found them bait balling out there while you've been fishing, not spearing.
Well, that's like, our yellowfin here, and I get hit up all the time by crew. They're like, why don't you try and spear them? And it's like our yellowfin aren't like other spots in the world where the tuna actually ball up and they'll be in one same area. Like, most of the areas where you'll chase your yellowfin, there's like a big, you'll have a seamount or you'll have a big bank or something. And it's like the tuna are there. You pretty much just have to drift it and you're going to shoot the fish. Yeah. Whereas, or you can go and shoot them off the bait balls. There's big stationary bait balls that the tuna will just sit on and feed. Like they might be there for half an hour.
Yeah.
Like you can shoot them off it. But our fish, these are like, they're pretty much like, they're like crack tuna. These things just do like 10 to 15 knots everywhere they go. Like, you'll see them over there.
And up and down.
Yeah, you start racing towards them and it's like you can't keep up with them. They move so fast. They're chasing flyers. I think it's just our bait's not the same. It's a fast-moving bait, so the fish never stays still. Yeah. But then we had that day last February where, me and Ed were out. I was solo as well. And, a beautiful day. We went out there. Ed had just caught a fish that day, like a 50-kilo fish or something the day before, and we went back out to this tent break because he'd seen a bunch of fish there and we started pushing up there and fair enough, he's like, I can see a bunch of birds, and he's got near him and then bang, he had a tuna on. He's like, yeah, I've got one here. So I've started going over and then I was like, oh yeah, I see these birds. And then I was like, oh wow, I see more birds. And it's like, there's birds everywhere. And it's like, I could see these big foamers, like just big stationary foamers. It's like, wow, like this is, and then straight away, boom, I had rod go off and I was on my first fish for that day. And then, like by the time I fought that, Ed came back out and the whole time I was fighting this fish, everywhere I could see was just these stationary bait balls of just big tuna just foaming everywhere. And, I released my fish and then it was like you just could not go wrong that day. It was like something I've never seen anything like that anywhere in the world, like proper big stationary bait balls, big yellowfin everywhere. And they were eating sardines. You'd look out in the distance and there'd be like 1,000 flying fish just going in the air with big yellowfin like jumping after them. Like I was on my own and that, and I ended up, I was running a full spread and I ended up having to go down to one rod. So I got a couple of double hookups. I had like sort of 60, 70, 80 kilo yellowfin, like smashing that. And one stage I had a double on. I was fighting one on I had an 80 wide and a Telica 50 at the time, and I had a fish on the Telica.
at the time.
And the 80, and I was just like, one was going one way, one was the other, and I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, I'll grab whatever looks like the biggest fish and I'll try and get that one first. And so I've grabbed the reel, harnessed in, started fighting it, and then the one that was on the Telica, all of a sudden that thing just started heating up and just started peeling line like unstoppable, and I was peeking out. I was like, better put a bit more drag on this thing. So I've leant over, put some more drag on, and then my lines have crossed over. So I've had to grab the rod and while I'm harnessed into a yellowfin, I've grabbed the rod and tried to tangle the rod around it, put it back. And because I'd taken the lanyard off to do that, I put it back in. And anyway, this thing just kept peeling line. And I was like, and then I just heard fiberglass start cracking. And I was just like, I was like, I better get, and I went to reach for the rod and just like that, like the actual rod holder snapped out of the gun or just ripped the whole thing out. And there was like my whole setup, just in the blink of an eye, gone. It was like, you couldn't even contemplate going over. It was just gone, bubble trail. Yeah. Disappeared. There's like $2,000 setup, just disappeared. I was just like, I couldn't stew on it because I was harnessed in. I had my ass smoked by a big tuna at the time.
Yeah, they are painful.
Yeah, I was just like, and then anyway, I've gotten this one up and I had the footage of that. I had to gaff that one because the shark took a couple of bites out of it.
Yep.
So I was like, there's no way I'm going to feed this thing to the sharks. So put the gaffs in, and that thing was like a 70 kilo tuna.
Fuck.
And then after that, I was like, all right, I'm just going to trawl with one rod. So
good decision.
So after that, it was one rod out. And then, like I was saying, you just couldn't go wrong. Like there was so many fish out there. Like it was just mind blowing. And then, I ended up catching 7 yellowfin that day, like all sort of over the 50 kilo mark, all big fish.
Fuck.
And then ended up getting nearly spooled by something, probably a big blue or whatnot.
Yeah.
Smoked like 800-900 meters of line off. I couldn't stop it. I ended up sending the reel to sunset and I was doing 10 knots chasing it. trying to wind and drive the boat at the same time, and ended up snapping me off.
Shit.
But then that was me done. And then I saw you boys. That's when you and Gatesy were out.
Yeah. Well, you and Eddie got in contact with me saying it's going off its tits out here. You got to get out here. So, normally tuna going off half an hour later, it's all over. And this was half a day it took us to get to there. We weren't even going. Had to load the boat, fuel it. We got Gatesy, got all our spear gear, whacked it in there. Heap of pillies. Got out there, it was still going off its nana. Like the amount of birds and tuna we drove past to get to where you guys were, which you would have stopped and stayed there if you hadn't have known better, if you just hadn't have told us. And we got there and chucked Gatesy in on a couple of bait balls. He missed a good tuna shooting, just had the jitters.
Heard that, just point blank missed it.
Just point blank missed it. I'm like, fucking shoot one so I can have a go, I'm like, I'll go again with you. Loaded his cannon, same thing, fucking 5 rubbers or whatever. I'm driving forward on a bait ball, not looking backwards, of course, not knowing what he's doing. And his gun's gone off and it's clipped my shoulder and blown out my front window. So you've lost a rod and a reel and I just about got speared. And after it blew out the front window, we decided it was quite late, Arvo, because we got there late. We decided to put a pin in it ourselves and just put the lures out and on dark, got an 84 kilo tuna ourselves, so we only got the one from it. But if we hadn't got if we hadn't got the call up from you guys, which is the only reason we got amongst it and got to see the bait balls and that, it sort of shows that a lot here, particularly in Exmouth, that crew that are always out there, it's real good network, that makes it possible. So.
No, well, that's when a lot of people say I get hit up a lot by people. They're like, oh, you've got these tuna nutted out. Like, what's the secret? Like, how do you find them? And it's like, there is no secret. It's like, you literally have to just spend time out there. It's the only thing. Like, you're not going to see that stuff unless you are out there. And that's when Blue Marlin fishing comes into it. I mean, you're out there chasing blues and then you just never know what you're going to come across. And then that happened again in October of all the months again this year. We were out, there'd been the water was cold and fairly green, and there'd been a couple of Blue Marlins around. We'd dropped 2 the day before, and so we were sort of out there again, super keen, and we rushed back out there, same area, and the guys I was with were sort of pretty bummed. We literally trolled all day. It was like 1 in the arvo. We hadn't seen a single fish. It was looking like a donut day. They were sort of bored and sort of complaining a bit, and I was, just like dealing with people. I'm like, this is why I fish solo. It wasn't too bad. And then we were sort of out, we ended up out in the middle. We were out nearly 1,100 metres of water, just middle of nowhere. And then, I saw a few chooks in an area, and I went across and I marked a big sounding, like a big patch of bait. I was like, wow, that's a really big patch of bait. There's got to be a predator here, there's got to be something here. And anyway, I sort of worked this patch of bait for over an hour on that stage. For an hour I worked this patch of bait. We didn't see anything. There was nothing, not even a hint of anything. And I actually said, I was like, righto, we'll do one more pass. I was like, one more pass and we're out of here. We'll go in. We did our one more pass, nothing. And then we're like, all right, we'll start heading in. And then just as we were starting to leave, all of a sudden out of nowhere, just like, a couple of 100 birds rocked up. Like all these muttoneers just out of nowhere just rocked up. Like, that's weird. And then one of those birds was like, well, I think I just saw like a big tuna jump out the water. I was like, hey, really? And it's like, yeah. And I was like, what do you mean big tuna? And he's like, yeah, this thing was looked like 6 foot long. I was like, that's a big tuna.
That's a big
and
tuna.
And then literally within 10 seconds, it was like whatever was down there, it's like these yellowfin rocked up and they just pushed this bait to the surface. And once again, it was like we just had this big stationary chumble. Yeah. And it was foaming, there was big yellowfin everywhere. And we was like, losing our minds again as you do, turn around. We did a pass. We were watching the chumble. We were like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, bang, one of the rods went off. And it was like, and I said to the boys, I was like, but when that's happening, everyone wants to be watching the action, like the bait one. I'm like, watch the spread. I'm like, if something's going to happen, it's in the spread. Yeah. That's where I'm driving the boat. I've got to watch the bait ball. I've got to try and get us lined up to catch the fish. I'm like, you need to watch the spread. I know. Anyway, the rod went off, and I was like straight around. I was like, "Did you see the bite? What is it? What?" And oh no, we were watching the bait ball. I was like, "Oh," so I didn't know if we hooked a blue or a tuna or whatever, but we dropped it after like 5-10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I pulled it in and reset the hook, and anyway, I kept going straight up, and then we got level with this bait ball and managed to get around it. And I've got the footage of it, that I put up, and as soon as we got around this bait ball, it was just like all three skirts just got piled on, just explosions everywhere. I was like, it was the stuff you dream of once again.
Yeah.
And then, we hooked that one, and, we got that fish, and we were on it for a while, and we got it up, and we put the gaps in, dragged it on. We were all stoked and high-fiving. I'm like, that was a 67 kilo one. And then we're like, and then I turned around, I'm like, the bait ball's still there. Like, it's right there. And it hasn't stopped. It's gotten bigger, if anything. And we'd gotten out, and straight away we had another hit, and I was like, wow, this is pretty special. Like, I've got to try. And, as you were saying before, Lee, like normally the tuna, they're up 5 minutes, they're gone. That's it.
It's there and then it's gone. The opportunity's gone.
To make the call to someone to say, like, come out here, it's pumping, like, is a big call. And I knew Wes and Ed were out. Like, Ed was 20 miles south that day, bottom fishing. Yeah. And I've caught him, and I told him that we'd caught a tuna, and then I caught him up, and I was like, mate, you better get here. Like, this is pretty amazing. Like, it's going off. And so he's like, peeking. I called Wes, and I think Wes and Haley were on the boat that day, and they had a bottom fishing charter, an inshore charter. They was trawling for mackerel in 20 metres. And it's like, they get the call, and it's like, we're in 1,100 metres, 20 mile out the back of you. And it was a little bit rough, and they've, told the punters, all right, wind in your bloody TLDs. We're
not catching shitfish anymore, cunts.
We're leaving the back of the reef, and we're going out 20 mile to 1,100 metres. It's on. So, we went out. We caught another tuna. We got a big one this one. I was calling in the 80s, like a really big fish.
Oh, nice.
It sort of absolutely spanked me. It was pretty good. We ended up snapping the hook on that when I had it on the leader. And, we snapped the hook on that. We sort of got rid of that. Then we went around, and it was like this. It was just going off, and I was like, wow, I need to film this. I was like, we had a GoPro on the boat. We only had a pair of goggles. That was it. We had 2 pairs of goggles. That was it. A couple of GoPros. And so I was just like, take me up there. I'm jumping in. So it took me up. I've jumped in, and I've just got a pair of goggles on, a GoPro in my hand. I'm breaststroking up to this bait ball. I'm like, my mate's wigged out that's with me. He's like, oh, there's sharks here. There was like 2 silkies. And I was like, they were like on my fins, and he's like trying to bat it away. And I was like, just forget about them. Like the silkies, they don't mean anything. And anyway, like I got to watch like this big sardine ball come in with just this big yellowfin everywhere, just lazily, just mouths open coming through, like just swiping through the school. Like you could have gidgeted a big yellowfin. Like it was ridiculous. Like big, slow moving yellowfin.
Yeah.
You've never seen anything like it. And I'm just there with a GoPro in my hand, and I filmed all this, and it was incredible to see. But I mean, you probably wouldn't have shot one of the big ones, because by the time the big ones were at the back of the school, by the time you got to the big ones, you'd already had like 20, 60 to 70 kilo ones.
You would have shot
around. You would have just played one of them.
Couple little ones at 60 or 70.
Well, that's the thing, and it's like you can see in that footage, like right at the end, there's big ones.
That big one comes straight through the middle.
Like,
that's awesome. That footage.
And these were huge fish, like, and they were right there. Like they were like, they were in your 80 to 90 kilo class fish. They were big fish, like, and like I said, incredible to see. And we got out on that, and we were all buzzed, and we kept going, and we did one more pass, and we caught another one. That was like number 3.
Yeah.
We released that, and Wes and that came out. They did like 2 passes, and then the punters were seasick. And they wanted to go. That was it. They were like, we got to go. So they've literally had to turn their backs and drive away from this. It's literally like you don't see that ever. It's almost like you classify it once in every few years, once in a blue moon, or for a lot of people once in a lifetime. They had to drive away from it. Yeah. And then Ed was standing up, and he's got to near where we were. We've turned around to go in because we had this tuna that we'd gaffed earlier in the day. We just had this thing sitting on the deck. We didn't have SGs, and we were like, we've got to leave. We've got to take this fish in. So we've left it, and it was still firing out there. And then Ed's come out, and he's got to like a mile from us, seen all the birds. He's put the gear in, and he's literally just hooked a big yellowfin straight away.
Straight off,
that was it.
One, didn't he?
Yeah. So he got one straight up, pulled it up, gaffed it. But that's the thing, when it's on, it's on. Like he was like 20 miles south. He's just like pulled the gear in, and just gassed it, got there, got the fish. And like, that's when it happens here.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. I remember you weighing that tuna that you brought in that day, come and have a look at it, always come and have a look at that sort of cool stuff. And then you're like, oh, I've got this awesome footage. I haven't been able to see it on the GoPro. I'll look at it tonight. And I'm like, yeah, message me if it's any good. And then like an hour later, my phone rings. You're like, get around here now. Like, straight around to watch it on the laptop. It was just insane. But like you're saying, how it's like once in a lifetime sort of stuff, but you've seen it twice. I know you particularly put a lot of days in out wide blue marlin fishing. How many days do you reckon you put in the last 12 months type thing in the last season? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can't really say season because my season is sort of never ending. Yeah. Like I fish all winter and that if I get a chance, I'm out there, I'll try and catch a blue marlin. We did. I think I just about caught a blue marlin in every month of the year this year. But yeah, like in the last year, I would have easily put in, like 60, 70 days, have to be up around that.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Guys are like, I want that tuna action. We'll come up for a week. And it's like, it ain't going to happen, mate. Like, what's 60 days? That's 1 in 6 days of the year. Yeah. So that means you got to go 1 day a week for every week of the year. You know, and people just don't get that. And then you
still might not say it.
Yeah, that's right.
Like fucking it's still special for you to say it. Yeah. So for anyone else, and like I felt the whole Wes thing on a charter, just the amount of times where you can't do something because punters don't realise how fucking special that is. Because they're like, no, we get big mackerel back there. It's like, yeah, but this is once in a lifetime.
Yeah, and they're like, no, we want to go and catch a mackerel. Yeah. And it's like, like people like Wes and Haley and that, like they've got the bug, like it's not just a fish, it means something. And they know what it's like, what it actually means to see that there. Like, it doesn't happen all the time. So to have to leave something like that is it's heartbreaking in a way. Like it actually plays on you.
It's so bad. Like not on the same sort of thing, but just on times where we had to turn away from stuff on charter just because, it wasn't in their interest when you knew it was just something special, let alone fucking that.
Yeah.
But you guys were talking before the podcast. They got a big yellowfin tuna in the Abrolhos comp.
Yeah, yep. So that Abrolhos comp should be finishing maybe today or something. And Chad Mills from Blue Lightning was fishing it. And I think yesterday they got an 89 kilo yellowfin on 37. So that'll be the new state record, I'd say. Yeah, which is really cool. That Abrolhos Island fishery, they've been catching a few fish there. I think it's the grounds on the charts look insane there, but the access, you got to get out to the islands, which is 30-odd mile, and then you got to get out the back of that. So, and the weather off Gelton is totally insane 90% of the time. So it's there to be done.
It's definitely there to be done, and it's untouched in a sense. Like, they do have their comp every year, and I know a few of the guys from Jarrow, and the cray fishermen and that as well, they shoot out there and hit it.
Yeah.
But, it's relatively, it's untouched and it's, in a sense, it's unexplored. Like no one's probably figured it out. Like here we know it's been fished that much, where the hot spots are, when it's going to be on. Whereas somewhere like that fishery, it's like you probably might not know exactly where those hot spots are or when exactly it fires, and yeah, there could be some amazing fishing to be had out there, that's for sure.
Well, it's a good sign for us too, especially yourself, Nate, if you're going to blue marlin fish coming into winter, because obviously you said October, you had that bait ball tuna action, so it's come early with the warmer water, the early warm water this year, and now it's south of us late. So there's potentially in another month or so or week or whatever that those tuna will be pushing back up past us with those big blue marlin that go with them,
It's really weird here, our fishery. It's like on the East Coast, you talk to the guys there and, they get a run as the water, as the warm water pushes down the coast, they'll get a run of fish. And then they actually get a back run of fish as well. As it comes back up the coast, will get a back run. Whereas, here, I don't know if the fish go out wide or something, but it's just like, you know, on the backside of it, we don't really get like enough. We get that one big run where we'll get big numbers of fish, and then after that, you know, we kind of don't get a huge amount come back through.
Yeah, it'd be interesting this year because of it. Like where, you know, generally most of the charter fleet and that go inshore to chase the big numbers of little blacks and that. So it may be there in a way, and it could be out actually wider, you know, like you know, you said you fished winter and got a blue marlin. You're the only person I know that confirmed that I've seen a photo. I've got a short bill spearfish out of here as well.
Yeah,
you know,
that was,
so they could push out wider through that sort of stuff.
Well, that's dead right. I mean, it's just no one does it. You know, everyone fishes the season here. They know people are catching fish. They go out, they fish for it, and then they're like, you know, come March, April, they're like, all right, blue marlin season's over. They pack up all the gear and they won't go out again until, you know, next October, November, until they hear Eddie's catching fish or, you know, there's stories. But there is times, obviously, like, you know, Popo used to fish flat out. Like, he got big marlin out here all year round. He caught that 81 kilo yellowfin in August or whatever it was, a few years, like middle of winter, like out there, and bang, just rolled a big barrel. Like, no one really does it enough to confirm it, but you know, I was fishing wide. I was fishing like the canyon, the 2,000 meter canyon, like way offshore. And if the water looks good, I'll go out there. And then there was like that day, that was winter. It looked good. We went out there, and you know, we caught like a 500-pound blue. And then just afterwards, we caught that spearfish, that short bill spearfish, which was an incredible fish. At the time, we didn't even know, you know, how good it was. Like, we got it up and I was looking at it, we're like, oh, what do we do with it? Like, you know, and I'm like, oh, it's a short bill spearfish. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I didn't realise, you know, at that stage that no one had actually caught one, or, you know, there'd been documented proof of a short bill spearfish out here. And then, yeah, so.
Did you realise what it was like early on, or was it when you grabbed it, you were like?
Well, it came in and, like, you know, it was really weird. I was like, oh, it's a sailfish. And then I was like, oh, because the way it was fighting and that. Then it came in, I was like, no, it doesn't have a sail. And I'm like, I swear it's got some sort of, you know, dorsal long sail-y thing on it. And I was like,
someone's cut it off.
And then it's like, nah, it's a wahoo, because it was lit up, like proper like a wahoo, like blue bars and that. Like, and then I was just like wigging out, and then I saw its face and I saw its little bill, and I was like, shit, this thing it's a short bill spearfish. You know, it was like, wow, like, I've never seen one of these. Like, this is incredible. And we were talking about, like, what do we do with it? Do we gaff it? Do we let it go? And we had it beside the boat, and we're like, oh. And then we ended up, we ran it over and we snapped it off because we were ginning around. You know, we had the drone footage. Like, one mate was flying the drone, the other mate was on the rod, and I was scratching my head thinking about what we were going to do with it. And yeah, I had it because I had it on the leader. Like, I was holding the leader for ages, and because I actually we had it on a long, so it was only 200-pound leader. So, you know, I was all gung ho. I had a couple of big wraps on my hand, and I was just like holding this thing, and it went nuts and went under the boat. And I was like, I'll just, you know, manhandle it, just tail drag it, and I just popped the leader. I was like, oh, well. But yeah, there was definitely. What
sort of size do you reckon it was? I seen a photo grab of the drone footage of it jumping. It looks awesome. There's no doubting what it is.
I would have. It's hard to say though, because looking at it, you'd be like, oh wow, it's like, it was a long fish, it was a big fish, and like, but it's in that sailfish category, I think, where, you know, they look big, but they're actually quite light.
Yeah.
And when I see the pictures of them and the weights of them, like, we were calling 40 to 50 kilo. But then, you know, you see weights and that, and they actually, you know, same as like a sail.
Yeah, like 50, a 20 kilo
yeah,
fish.
50 kilo sail is actually only 20 kilo.
Yeah.
So it could have been, it would have been, I reckon, in that 30 kilo range.
Yeah, right.
So
very cool.
Do you think that short bill spearfish are like the most disputed fish in the Exmouth area?
Oh, they're right up there. There's a few, but the strange thing with short bill spearfish in the Exmouth community is you've got basically two groups of game fishing people. You've got the older original crew, and then you got the newer crew. And the older crew said there used to be even a commercial fishery or something for them in the Gulf, and no one of the newer crew has seen that.
Yep.
And then from what we know about short bill spearfish is they're a deep oceanic creature by nature. So like Hawaii and that, like even 500 metres is getting too shallow for them. They like it deep, couple of thousand metres. They like it wide. They're a warm water winter fish, so they like the colder months of a tropical climate. So it just none of that screams it should be in the Gulf.
Nah,
but there's like a dozen people that swear that the Gulf was full of them.
They swear that, but I find that hard that no one's got a single photo of one of these fisheries that there was apparently all these fish there. No one's got a single photo of it, and that Gulf has been fished hard all seasons of the year for, the last 10 years or more by a lot of good fishermen, and surely by now someone would have caught one if they were there.
The one thing that is a bit funny with the Gulf is I've fished it the last 3 years or maybe 4, I think 3 years, and some of the charter operators have fished it heavy longer than that. But I got to fish it maybe 8 years or 10 years ago. I got to fish the first comp I went in. I went with Gatesy in there, and there was a black marlin in there, and Eddie caught it, and then we caught it. So we both had the tag in it. It was cool. Swimming around just with the sails, eating. And apparently that was quite common before. There was a few black marlin.
Yeah.
Now you don't see them. I haven't seen one in that 3 years, and I never hear of Josh or Eddie or that seeing them anymore. So, they've slowly dwindled from in there. So potentially that could happen with short bill spearfish, but it's definitely changing.
Do you also see there was apparently there was all the rumours going around that they reckon they used to catch yellowfin in the Gulf as well.
There was a tuna cannery.
Yeah, there was some guys saying that they were used to long line yellowfin in the Gulf, but then it's like talking to the people that spend a lot of time in the Gulf, they're like, there's a lot of big longtail in the Gulf. But so that it's like
Carnarvon had huge yellowfin and doesn't now behind the trawlers.
Well, that is an anomaly.
I've seen one behind a trawler.
A big yellowfin?
Big yellowfin from the flybridge of Blue Horry following a trawler.
Yeah.
And 100% yellowfin.
Yeah,
Just following it actually like 50 metres out from the marina. That was when I was a decky though.
Yeah.
But yeah, having said that, the bait schools in the Gulf and in Lighthouse Bay, what they were 15, 20 years ago compared to now, fucking different ball game. Like when you went out there was just always those massive bait schools.
Yeah. Where like the Carnarvon one, from my understanding, the Carnarvon big yellowfin, they weren't there originally.
Yeah.
And then they adapted to live behind the trawlers. They sort of must have come in and learnt to live there. And then for whatever reason, maybe they got scared of being caught behind the trawlers, then they've left.
Well, another thing is as well, though, is that the sharks behind the trawlers now are 30 times worse than what they were when those big yellowfin were there. So whether or not, because I looked right into that, the big yellowfin behind the trawlers. I called random people up and I'd just harass them about these yellowfin. You'd hear stories, they were saying like, we'd just be working, because they'd work. It was at night time was the hard thing, they'd work at night time there. So every time
shot in the morning.
They'd pull up a shot, they'd dump out, and there was just big yellowfin eating everything as they were, going down the chute. Big yellowfin just smashing it. So there'd be like, 10, 12 big yellowfin behind the boat. But there wasn't many sharks there then as well at the same. There was only a few sharks. Nowadays, though, there is like 100 sharks behind those trawlers. Like it would borderline be, even if the yellowfin were there, and that's a lot of the guys that I know from Carnarvon that used to go and catch those yellowfin were saying that in the later years they started losing all the yellowfin to sharks. So they were catching the yellowfin, they were just getting sharked.
Yeah.
And nowadays, talking to like the skippers of those trawlers are saying like the amount of sharks behind the trawlers are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't even be able to jump in the water there with the amount of sharks that there are nowadays.
Yeah. A lot of that would be the implementation of TEDs, I would imagine, the turtle exclusion devices, because trawlers by nature used to catch the sharks and now they don't. So I suppose if they're swimming around in the nets just willy-nilly.
Yeah.
It's just hard, but because, the WA, there's been a shark explosion along the entire coastline for all the fisheries, recreational, commercial, everywhere. It's a weird thing, you can't really explain that. But as you were saying, the ocean does do weird things and weird cycles. And maybe, this winter the bait could arrive back in Exmouth Gulf and there's there's short-bill spearfish and yellowfin tuna in there.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing that does lend it to it, I've got no idea on either way. I've never actually spoken to anyone besides, I think Princey mentioned it on the podcast the other day about short-bill in the Gulf. But it's funny how we just get so used to our time in that getting a photo is so much fucking easier now.
Yeah,
and that's true, yeah.
Not just easier, but also it's not as awkward to ask someone, like you expect someone to take a photo of every fish you catch or any decent one. Like I know fucking even when I first started fishing and spearfishing, like to ask someone to take a photo on film, like it had to be a fucking good fish.
Yeah.
You went,
Oh, yeah.
Well, now it's more important too, like if you don't get the photo, why did you do it? Like, like Nate's saying, I take a lot of guys fishing as well and some of them you take out and they don't look like they're loving it. They hate it. They don't like marlin fishing. It's too boring, yada, yada, yada. They catch one, then they catch one, then it's like take a photo of them with it boat side. And then you look on their social media and they're like, had the best day of my life. I got this fish, blah, blah, blah.
yeah, I'm a fisherman now.
Yeah, and they're doing it just for the photo. The actual experience was shit. Where I think back in Princey's younger days and that, people did things for the point of doing it with their mates, not for the experience of telling or showing other people later so much, So that's probably why it's not as important to get a photo then.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. And that has changed how we question people and shit now as well, though. Like if someone says now they've got something fucking, like they've pulled a big blue marlin boat side or they've caught some sort of special fish, you're like, where's the photos?
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise,
and if they don't have them, you're like, you're more likely a liar than not. Whereas...
otherwise it's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, fucking probably 3/4 of the shit that you used to do, you wouldn't have had someone had to remember to bring a camera with film and shit like that.
Yeah.
And then you had to find someone that fucking cared about it.
Yeah, and get the film out without fucking it up. How many times you do that? Open your camera and twing, fuck.
Yeah. But it's now everyone's got an iPhone with cameras and video functions on them. And in that day, like when we got that short bill, we had a drone in the air filming the capture. It's like, 20 years ago, you weren't going to have a drone in the air or you weren't going to have an iPhone bloody 11 with 3 cameras on it to capture that.
But even still, lucky you had the drone because
definitely.
If you didn't have that drone footage of it jumping, I'd be a skeptic. You'd be going, we had a short bill and snapped it on the leader. I'd be like, yeah, good one.
Well, that,
and I know you very well, so and I'd still be skeptical.
I came in, I said to Ed, I sent him a message and I was like, we caught a short bill spearfish, and he was like, oh yeah, mate, yeah. Sure. He's like, you got a photo? And I was like, oh, actually I got a screen snap, and sent him a screen snap, and then just got this message back all in big capitals. It's like, holy fuck, that's an actual short bill spearfish. It's like, I thought it was. It's like, yeah, it was. And that's how I realised. It was like, it's
a big thing.
Yeah, it was a big thing. So, but now it's like,
I went out there this season way out wide. You were out fishing that day as well, but we had a fish on on the long, and ate it like a stripe. Couldn't quite see it. Just boiled, pecked at it like a little budgerigar. Went and then fell off. And we
100% it was a short bill. We
called it a stripe. Just called it a stripe for my stats.
Nah, mate, 110 short bill.
Called it a stripe for my stats, but I'm not going to lie. In my mind, it's got me half wanting to go back out there, even though I didn't see anything else out there.
I've done a lot of trips out there. I've been out there a bunch of times, and I've had probably half the days I've been out there we haven't got anything, and then but other days the biggest black I've caught was out there.
Yeah, right.
You'd think blacks are inshore, and the biggest black we caught out there, and that was in July.
Yeah,
and so that day, we rocked up first thing in the morning, we left Tanner's at 4 or something. Got out there as the sun was coming up, and we just saw big tuna busting up out there. We were pretty blown away. And these tuna, like they didn't have sickles. That was the thing. They're big tuna and they didn't have sickles. Like they were jumping like 200 metres from us and there was no sickles on them. So I was like, they're either big eye tuna or the bluefin.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that could be. And
which is all recorded out there through the longline fishery and tagging program.
So that was the thing, like out there. And then we trawled around. We didn't get bugger all, which is what happens 90% of the time. You see big tuna.
Yeah.
And then just after that, we actually saw this big mako jumping, like in the distance, a big mako doing these big backflips and that. We were like, oh, this is incredible. And then just after that, we all of a sudden, boom, like the long went off and we didn't see what it was. And this thing's just going nuts, like, just peeling heaps of line, going down deep. And we're like, it doesn't look like a marlin. Like, is it a tuna or, it hasn't done anything. And then same typical black marlin. 20 minutes later, we went up and down it, and all of a sudden, boom, this,
out he comes.
Yeah, like 250 kilo black marlin just launches out of the water like 50 metres off the side of the boat.
That's sick.
And then, that was cool as to see that. And then we ended up dropping that fish right on, we pretty much had it on the leader and dropped it. But then, we kept going from there, and then we found like a piece of dead giant squid floating on the surface, like this metre and a half by metre like chunk of like 3-inch thick dead squid, just like bites out of it, just floating on the surface out there.
Fucking hell, that's
Holy
insane.
shit.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you don't know what lives out there like that. It drops down, it's like 2,500 metres or something.
Well, me and Squirrely had out in 1100 here. One day we had a pair of sperm whales. So if they're out there hunting, that's what they eat. So... it's every chance of all that out there.
Big squid out there.
But I mean, it's all about exploring new areas as well. Like there's so much open ocean out there that's untouched that unless unless people go out there and start fishing it, no one's going to know what it can provide.
Yeah.
Same as anywhere really. Like the whole WA fishery. Like these guys are pushing out from the Abrolhos and they're catching massive yellowfin and blue marlin out there and. Then, guys I know just went out from Jurien and they caught big blue marlin out from there. And what's to say, like the guys off Rottnest as well, like they just banged a bunch of blues. They've had like the best blue season they've had for years out there, like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I was saying that.
It gets me saying, it's like even like, like Cape Naturalist, Cape Lewin down there, you've got the Lewin Current that just, it's like a pressure point. It constricts around that cape and bends around.
Yeah.
And then eddies behind the back of the cape towards Albany and that.
Yeah.
And it stops there. And it's like, that is just one big fish highway. Like the amount of big pelagics that have been down there. And the biggest blue marlin ever recorded in Australia, it was, even in the world, it was something like 1,500 pound or something washed up in Albany.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
It was still, was that the one that was still half alive?
There's been 4 or 5.
Yeah, because there was one in Esperance and one there within a couple of years.
There's been like monster blue marlins washed up on the beaches down there. So, what's to say there isn't a crazy fishery out from the capes down there?
Well, I've wondered since they started doing those Bremer Canyon tours for the killer whales, where just that one spot just bubbles up at a certain time of year.
I've been out there. I went out there. I actually went out. We were in Bremer for a holiday and I bumped into one of the guys I used to work with and he was driving that orca boat, the Bremer tours or whatever it is. And I bumped into him and he was like, why don't you come out and, come and see the orcas tomorrow. I'll take you out. So me and my chick, we went out there and, as soon as I got out there, the first thing I was just like, tuna. I was like, tuna, bluefin tuna. Have you seen bluefin tuna out here? Just started peppering him. And he was like, oh, personally, I was like, what about the commercial fishermen? What about the wetliners? And I was like, they've got to be here.
Yeah.
We went out there and, I'd see these birds and I'm like, there's birds over there. And it's like, oh, it's a kill. It's orcas. And I was like, oh, orcas. So, I'm just thinking bluefin.
Yeah.
We get out there and, there's bluefin have just ripped apart a beaked whale or something and there's all these greenies oohing and ahhing watching this beaked whale get slowly torn apart while it's alive and they're all like, some chick's crying because it's so majestic and beautiful and I'm like, this is actually horrifying. I was like, the Japanese do this and, half the world stops down in protest and the orcas do it and it's majestic
orcas get away with it.
Beautiful, yeah. And I'm like, you guys are confused.
When are they going to get held accountable? Hey, thanks for listening to part 1 of Chumming Up with Nate Brejnak. Hope you enjoyed it. There's a part 2 where we get real in-depth into spearfishing, especially dogtooth tuna, bits about the Mexican cartel. It's an awesome little ep. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us on everything. Give us a review and enjoy your life.